The Conservatives' botched negotiations and threat of a no-deal Brexit is causing uncertainty and damaging Britain's economy. Lots more views, lots more thoughts on that story throughout the day here on Sky News. The suicide rate in teenagers has almost doubled in the past 8 years. The new figures from the Office for National Statistics have prompted fears of a suicidal generation. The data shows the rate among children aged 15 to 19 has risen, while that of nearly all older age groups is declining. Well, I'm joined now by psychotherapist Noel Bell. Thanks for joining us on Sky News this afternoon. Now, what are you putting these figures down to?
Well, I think there's a lot of speculation that it's austerity, that's the social part, whether it's social media, that might be leading to these very worrying statistics. I don't think any of us can be very clear exactly why these stats are as bad as they are, because we have strong correlational data, but it's hard to find causal data. So, for instance, with social media, the question is social media a coping strategy, or is it actually causing the mental health problems? I don't think we can say that.
And of course, this comes only a few days after we saw figures regarding self-harm online. That's also a real issue at the moment, isn't it? These images, these videos, which are easily accessible on social media and which the government hopes to clamp down on.
Yes, and I think there has to be a balance drawn between the responsibilities of the tech companies and our needs for privacy. There have been changes by some tech companies to their algorithms, which are pointing people with banner ads to signposting for help. And that's been good, but there's also concerns young people none of us as users of social media want to be spied upon. So I think there has to be a balance between the responsibilities of the social media companies and our individual responsibility for emotional regulation.
It is interesting, isn't it, that the age group is those 15 to 19-year-olds, and other age groups, the number of suicides is declining. I mean, it would suggest, wouldn't it, that that group especially is very tuned into social media. It would suggest a link. It
would suggest that, but you could also argue it could be recreational drug use. We've seen lots of evidence, actually, of the impurity of cocaine use, and we know the prevalence of social drug taking in that age group. Also, I think there's a big factor around educational attainment and exam pressure, which might be also contributing to a lot of stress and anxiety around successful performance at exams.
Yeah, you paint a rather sad picture, Noel, about this age group and the pressures that they are under. What can we do about it? What can parents do? What can schools do? And indeed, what can universities and colleges do to try and reverse this trend?
Well, a lot of people would argue for greater funding for mental health services. We know that mental health funding has been restricted, and those funds that have been there have been raided for other physical health needs. So I think greater funding, and even the recent government announcements of greater funding, is still looking to target up to 25% of young people who have mental health problems. So even if that additional funding comes through and more people are seen, that's still leaving 75% of young people with mental health problems on the waiting list.
We've heard some recent very sad examples of children who have taken their lives, and their parents really had no idea about their online activity and what they were doing and talking about and viewing on social media. What advice would you give mums and dads who perhaps aren't aware of what their children are thinking and doing behind their bedroom door, perhaps, but also who maybe are aware and are concerned it could lead on to something more serious?
Well, I think a lot has been said about digital literacy, and we need to understand what that actually means. It's about adults, parents, equipping themselves with the knowledge of what's actually happening. Now, if you had said to me, do parents leave their kids unattended in the local playground? That's kind of similar to giving a smartphone to a child with unrestricted access, potentially, to all sorts of inappropriate material. So I think there's a responsibility on the parents to know what their kids are doing and to actually maybe friend them, if the kids will allow that, on their social networks so they have a better idea of what is happening. Trouble is, I think a lot of kids just don't want their parents involved. So we're facing quite a difficult situation for that monitoring. Just one other fact, though, that has come up. There is some evidence to show that the social and educational attainment and the emotional regulation of kids is declining at a certain age group compared to 10 years ago. And some are speculating that that's the parents who are actually not engaging with their kids as they had been, because the parents themselves are looking at the screens and they're addicted to social media themselves.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. Good to get your thoughts. Psychotherapist Noel Bell, thank you.